Hey, how you doing? This is Keston Fulcher from James Madison University. Thanks so much for joining me on my AALHE 2020 on-demand session. The topic is introducing learning improvement at your home institution. By the way, I'm reporting out from an exceptionally exotic place. This is my dining room here in Harrisonburg, Virginia, so I'm happy that you're here with me. Many people contributed to the information you're about to see. Let me give them a brief shout out. It's Monica Stittberg and Yao Hill from University of Hawaii, Charlie Belach and Kathy Wise from the Center of Inquiry at Wabash College, Chris Coleman at University of Alabama, Megan Good from Auburn University, and Kristen Smith from University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I would also like to say that many of us, including myself, are part of a new group called the Learning Improvement Community. Our goal is to not just assess learning in higher education, but actually to figure out how to improve learning at these institutions. I'm going to start off with a video within a video. So you're going to see my shirt magically transform into a white shirt. And in that 3 minutes, I'm going to introduce learning improvement. After those 3 minutes, we're going to spend more time going through examples of learning improvement to make those concepts clearer. Question: what's the difference between monitoring, change, and improvement? If you don't know now, you will in a few minutes. It's good to see you. My name is Keston, and you're on my channel for learning assessment and improvement. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to learning improvement. And the way that I teach learning improvement is I start by contrasting it with lesser uses of assessment results. So we're going to start with monitoring. We'll move to changing the assessment methodology, to changing the learning environment, to finally improving student learning. We'll take a look at one assessment scenario and then look at the 4 different responses to it. A program wants to evaluate its seniors' outgoing writing skills, and they evaluate those skills with a rubric that ranges from poor to fair to good to great. And they find out that their seniors, on average, score between a fair and a good. Let's look at the 4 different types of responses to this scenario, and we'll start with monitoring. Faculty look at those results and they say, let's keep an eye on it. Or they might say, let's talk about this in a meeting. Both of those responses are monitoring. Some folks might look at the results and say, I don't trust them. I don't like the instrument. Maybe the test was bad. I don't like the sample that was used, or I don't think that students gave a good effort. And then they say, we're going to blow up the methodology and we're going to do things differently next time. We're going to get a better test. We're going to do sampling better, or we're going to make sure that our students give a good effort. All of those changes are to the methodology. Let's recap for just a moment. So far, we've talked about monitoring and changes to the methodology, neither of which has even the possibility of improving student learning. Another response is that faculty look at those results and they say, gosh, this is not where we want our students to be. Between fair and good, we would like them to be at least good or better. And so they take a tough look at their curriculum. They take a look at their pedagogy, and they make those changes. How does that change to the learning environment graduate to learning improvement? It actually requires a couple things. It requires, 1, that there's a reassessment of student learning, and 2, it requires that that reassessment shows greater learning proficiency than the assessment before it. Let's bring the point home. Recall in the original example where seniors were scoring between fair and good. And then the faculty made these logical changes to the learning environment. Well, then they reassess a future cohort and find that students perform better. In fact, these future students are scoring between good and great. That's improvement. So there was an original assessment, there was an intervention or a change to the learning environment, and there was a reassessment showing better learning. That's learning improvement. Thanks so much for hanging with me. Hopefully now you can distinguish better between learning improvement and those lesser forms of responding to assessment. I hope you enjoyed that introduction to learning improvement. Now we're going to switch to the long form. So we're going to go through the same pattern of looking at an assessment scenario, then looking at monitoring, change to methodology, change to the learning environment, and learning improvement. But we're really going to blow out those examples so that you can see the difference. Okay, here's the scenario. I encourage you to read it all the way through and just press the pause button to make sure you have enough time to read it. Okay, we're going to move on to 4 different vignettes. Each of the vignette is based off of the scenario that you just read. What's different about each vignette is how the program used or responded to those assessment results. And if these slides are going too fast, please use the pause button to make sure that you can read and absorb all the material. Let's move on to the first vignette. The table and the text that you see that is not bolded, they're going to remain the same through each of the 4 different vignettes. What changes is the wording below that's in bold. So in this case, when the program is looking at those assessment results, they say, we're not sure what the issue is here. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. And that turns out that is an example of monitoring. So if you hear those words, keep an eye on it. We're going to see if trends develop over time. We may talk about it in a meeting. Those are statements consistent with monitoring. Let's move on to vignette number 2. So we'll go down here to the bold. That's what's different. And it reads, the faculty discussed these results and came to the conclusion that parts of the rubric related to rapport do not match what we think is important. For next year, we will tweak the rubric so that rapport element is better in line with our definition. So what's that an example of? That's an example of change to the methodology or change to the assessment process. This is not bad necessarily. We want to make sure that our assessment is aligned with what's happening in the program, but changing the assessment methodology is not by itself going to improve student learning. Here's where things start getting exciting with vignette 3. Notice all the new language that's in bold. Take a few seconds to read it. If you don't have enough time, that's okay. Press that pause button. Let's look at the very bottom. So this program gives 3 statements about things that they're going to do, how they're going to change the learning environment for the students. So they're going to model rapport, they're going to offer practice to students, and they're going to provide more formative feedback using the rubric. So these are all examples of changing the learning environment. Many people will mistakenly believe that what's in scenario 3 is learning improvement. It's not. Let's see the difference. Finally, vignette 4. You'll notice that there's a lot of new information with this vignette, everything that's in bold. Also, I'd like to draw your attention up here to rapport building. This is the only time where what's in the table has changed. In the past vignettes, rapport was 2.3 in 17 and then about the same level in 18 and 19. Notice that those scores are higher. All right, take a few minutes to read that vignette carefully. One of the things that you need to demonstrate learning improvement is a baseline. So that is, how did students perform prior to the change in the learning environment? So if we look at vignette 4, we can see that students score a 2.3 in 2017, and that's the baseline performance. And associated with that baseline performance is the baseline learning environment. And so that's highlighted below. Well, it's no wonder that students were performing pretty poorly in 2017. The students weren't given an opportunity to practice the skills in rapport building, nor had they received feedback on rapport building. Okay, now we're starting to go into some action. So if you go from 2017 to 2018, the score rises from 2.3 to 3.1, and that's the reassessment performance. And there's also a new learning environment. So the students who graduated in 2018 experienced a different learning environment than that in 2017. Now comes the interpretation. In 2018, seniors received the revamped 480, and we attribute the 2.3 to 3.1 improvement to the curriculum change. That's the learning improvement interpretation. So in Vignette 4, we've got all the parts to learning improvement. We've got the baseline, we've got the change to the learning environment, and then we have a reassessment evidencing better learning. I added a bit of complexity to Vignette 4, that after the baseline year, there's actually 2 follow-up years, 2018 and 2019. And so let's take a look at the interpretation of 2019. As you can see, the reassessment performance is up to a 3.6, and the learning environment is a little different too. So the students who graduate in 2019 had the benefit of receiving some new instruction in both the 18 and 19 years as juniors, and then in 18 and seniors as in 2019. So specifically, they've seen faculty model rapport building in 380, a junior level class, and in 480. They also had practice opportunities both in Psych 380 as juniors and also in 480 as seniors. And then they've had feedback along the way. And so what's neat is here's the interpretation here, that the 2019 students received the modified Psych 380 when they were juniors and in Psych 480 as they were seniors. The program attributes that additional 0.5 bump to that double dose of rapport building in 380 and 480. I hope you saw that difference between Vignette 3 and Vignette 4. In both, action was taken on the curriculum, which is great. The difference is in Vignette 4, a reassessment was done, showing better learning than the baseline back in 2017. And that's why that example is improvement. That is, they took a baseline, they intervened, and then the program reassessed, showing better student learning. If you found those 4 vignettes to be helpful tools in your own learning for learning improvement, consider taking them back to your institution and giving a similar presentation to your colleagues. If you haven't met me before, you might have been wondering, what the heck was he doing with those pigs on those vignettes? Well, a few years ago, I wrote a paper with some colleagues of mine called Weigh Pig, Feed Pig, Weigh Pig, a simple model for learning improvement. And at JMU, our unofficial mascot has become the learning improvement pig. So if you see me at a conference in person, stop by, talk to me. I'll figure out a way to get you this pig. In addition to the pig paper, we have a number of other resources about learning improvement as well. I encourage you to take a look at them. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this on-demand session. Now that we've had a chance to talk about learning improvement and you've been able to hang out with me in my dining room, I consider us to be good friends. Come by and see me and my colleagues again at the JMU booth. I hope to see you soon.